Okay, in this video, we will look at how an app developer can use Rafay's Resize tool to right-size their applications. And for this, just as a reference, let's go look at how you can find the tool. You go to docs.rafay.co, go under open source, and click on this to get access to the Git repo and follow the instructions here. So in the prior video, we looked at how a platform engineer with cluster-wide access privileges can find wastage and eliminate wastage across all teams, across all namespaces. But the more practical solution is actually to hand over and give access to this tool to an app developer. The app developer will only have access to their namespace, or if they have a couple of namespaces, maybe a couple of namespaces. The problem they have today is they don't have the means to profile their applications so that they can right-size them. As a result, they'll end up putting in some numbers for the requests and limits that they think is ideal, and usually results in over-provisioned applications. So in this video, we'll see how, as an app developer, I can do that. The process is fairly similar, except there are some nuances and things to worry about. Once they profile the application, they can right-size their application directly in Git instead of the platform engineer having to chase down the app developer to fix it. So let's see this in action. So as an app developer, I'm going to log into my identity provider. In this case is Okta. Then I click on Rafay. And as you can see here, as an app developer, I only have access to the Apple Pie namespace, but I have namespace administrative privileges as configured in my corporate identity provider. So if I go to this, notice that I have access to this namespace, and if you look at this cluster, notice that I don't have access to the other namespaces. I can only see the Apple Pie namespace. And in this, there's a couple of applications running. We will deploy another application as well, and then we'll see how we can resize things. Okay, so the way to do that is, now I have this cluster, but I need a way to access it. And I don't want to be going through a bastion or something else. So Rafay provides a convenient way by which I can download a kubeconfig and access it. I already downloaded one, so let's go look at that very quickly. I have this sitting here. Let me open that with my VS Code. As you can see here, this is the kubeconfig, which allows me to access the cluster, and then it'll go to this context called Apple Pie. So let's try that out. Okay, this is my file. If I do that, now let's try a kubectl. And if you notice here, it's connected to my cluster, and with this I'm able to access my namespace, right? And I have two pods that I showed that were running there, and I'm going to try and deploy another app. So if you notice this is the Resize app, and let's go look at the YAML for that. And as an app developer, I really do not know what to give for the requests and limits. I have no idea at this point in time, so I've just given in some random number, and I want to profile this so I can right-size this. So let's see how I can do that. So I'll do a kubectl apply -f stress.yaml. This will end up getting deployed onto that, and if I do a kubectl get PO, it's gonna show that new thing that is just gotten operational, right? So now I need a few data points before the Resize tool can come and tell me what the right size would be, right? Let's see what I see in the Rafay console, see if I can see anything that I can use, right? So let's go to that. Let's go to this. And if I go under my clusters, resources, Apple Pie, and this, and notice that the BusyBox pod, which is part of the stress application, is running. And if you go look at if I go attempt to describe it, and I go look at the limits and requests, it's a pretty sizable number, and I want to be able to right size this. So let's go click on this, and I want to look at the container, and I guess I have one data point. No, I don't have a data point yet. Let's give it a couple of minutes and come back and see when I have a metrics data point, which the ideal recommendation would be to run this for perhaps 24 hours under stress, under the right conditions, where it's being used like as if you expect it to be running in production or your pre-production environment, and use that as a means to figure out how do I profile my application. So in this simple demo, I will be running a stress app. I'll just look at a few data points and use that as a way to showcase example. Okay, we'll come back to this in a couple of minutes once I have a data point for this. Okay, so I do have a data point here, and let's go look at this. I also have a data point. It's using a certain low value. Now I can flip back to my CLI, and then if you notice here, I have this resize tool, and let's go find the instructions for this. The instructions for this are, I want to first run a dry run. So let's go do that. So let me give that namespace. And as you can see here, it's told me that I have 3 applications there. You notice here, again, just like what we saw as a platform engineer, I'm requesting one, but I'm using a fraction of it from a CPU perspective. And I can add a buffer to it and say, hey, maybe I'll just make sure that I have a little more, so 23 in this particular example. And there are a couple of other pods, these Apple Pie things, which are actually using no CPU. They have a very small usage of memory. So, and the reason why these are listed separately is, notice these don't have any CPU or memory requests configured. This is essentially under the quality of service called best effort, right? So if you go look at those very quickly, here, notice the quality of service is best effort, which means there are no requests, all limits configured, right? That is not a ideal configuration for an application, but we're going to attempt to take care of all of it in one shot as a developer. So she's given me a recommendation on what to change. So for the things that have no CPU requests or memory requests configured, it will, and then in this case, there's a usage of 0, it will give a minimum that is configured. Instead of zeroing it out to and make the application crash, it will give a minimum so that there's at least something for the application to operate. So what we're going to do now is we're going to resize it. And I'm going to remove the -d option and run it. And if you notice here, it's running against my namespace, and it's resized it after. And if I go look at my particular deployments here, notice there are 2. One of them is the old application that was pre-existing, and the other one is the one I deployed. And if you go look at the new one, and if I do a describe, the requests were reduced, it was right-sized. Let's go look at our application here, and we're going to describe this. And if you notice, every pod here is running with the right requests and limits. So as a developer, now I've just managed to resize this the way I want. And if I go look at my file here, stress.yaml, I could just go and take the output here. Instead of this, I can just put in the new number that I have from my Resize, Rightsizing tool, and I can update this number in my Git repo, check it in, and use that as a way to baseline my application. So as you can see here, as an app developer with access to just a namespace, I was able to take care of resizing my application literally in minutes. As I mentioned, the ideal configuration here would be to run your application for a certain time period, like a few days or at least a week, and then use the data points, or at least 24 hours at minimum, and then use the multiple data points to understand what the peak usage is so that you can right size it properly. Thank you.